when we are live. Yes, we are live.
We are live. It's Rubel and myself, Teresa, today, and our topic is on the power of compounding focus. So something that we're excited to explore and see how we can contribute through this conversation that we have together today. So, Rubel, I'd like to hear what is your definition of compounding focus?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's great to be with you, Teresa. It's great, always have great conversations. So here's the thing. Albert Einstein called compounding interest to be the 8 wonders of the world. So it's one of the biggest miracles in the world, compounding interest. And he said, those who know it, they benefit from it. Those who don't know it, they lose from it. They basically pay in compounding interest. But those who know what it is, they get in compounding interest. So that is a frame that we could use to explain what is compounding focus. So there is this kid called two Steves, one Steve and another Steve. They were trying to figure out little thing called computers, and they went to different places. They figured out small devices, and he had a big dream, and he tried to build this company, and then it failed basically, and he was fired from the company. And then he started another company that failed again, and then he came back, barely succeeded, and then everything changed for him. That's Steve Jobs. Now everybody look at Steve Jobs and say, oh my gosh, what a great genius. He was not a great genius before he was Steve Jobs. He was just a regular guy trying to figure out life, trying to figure out business. What did he do? He had compound focus. For the age of 14, 15, he was trying to figure out one thing, trying to come up with a creative, user-friendly solution for the world. And it took me decades to get to that through compounding focus. So that's my simple definition for compounding focus.
Wow, that's he's a good example to use for that too. And so I how I see it also is wherever your focus goes, that's what will grow. And so it's the compounding effect of wherever it's going, whether it be good or bad, by repeated focus, then you're stacking something that's leading you down a particular path based on your focus.
Absolutely. And if you have that focus for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, like Warren Buffett, like one of my mentors said, Warren Buffett is the greatest investor in the world. You know why? Because he's 120 years old. No, I'm joking. But the point is, he's 96, probably 95, 96 years old. But 60 years, he was focused on one thing.
Yeah.
Like knowing the value, intrinsic value of a company. And he studied a book called Intelligent Investor by Graham. I don't know his first name, last name. And then he continued doing that for his 50 years of his life, 50 or 60 years of his life. So imagine 6 decades. So we talk about, in personal development, people talk about, hey, if you have focus on something, that's the direction you're going. But you focus on that next week, next month, next year, next year after that, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, then everybody start to call you genius. Oh my gosh, she's a genius. Why? Because she was just willing to focus on one thing for a long time. Just like compound interest, your focus is going to breed on itself.
Yeah. And so what would you say is in business, if you're an entrepreneur, what to really maximize the power of compounding focus? If you're just starting out or you've got a business that you're working with right now, is there any suggestions you would have?
Let's go with the exact strategy rather than like being very specific about it.
Okay.
If you're a business owner right now, or anytime when you're listening to this, uncertain world, non-uncertain or certain world, the only thing that you need to be focused on is adding a lot more value to your customers than anybody else in the market. That's where your compounding focus is on. Your focus is not about your victory, not about your failure, not about your company, XYZ, being a millionaire or billionaire or whatever. No, your focus is only on one thing. How could I add more value and teach my customers to create value, perceived value in their mind? So what you do, they need to value too. So you need to not only add value, but teach my customers to value too. And if you do just that for 1 week, 2 weeks, 52 weeks, 100 weeks, a decade, you're going to be successful, immensely successful. And you figure out on the way, how could I add more value? Because more value you add to marketplace, more money you're going to make anyways. That's the one thing that businesses can focus on.
Yeah, so focus in on how can you make the greatest difference on a daily basis to your client, your customer, your patient, whoever it is that you serve. What can you do each day to add value to that person? And if you do that each day, then it's compounding. So one of the questions I would ask the audience is, what is that one thing you do each day that actually you focus on for your clients, your customer, your patient? What is that one thing that you do? And what is it going to be? Like, what is the plan to actually create that compounding focus for yourself? What can you do each day leading up to the end of this year even?
Yeah, think about it and put that in the chat too. Since this is going live in like so many 8 places or something, like wherever you put that in the chat, we could actually see that. So put that in the chat and tell us like where are you going to focus on? Yeah, if you focus on yourself, you get depressed after some time, right? If you focus on other people, you get angry sometimes. You're like, oh my gosh, that person has this, that person is more successful. I went to high school with him. Now he's a rock star, but I'm nobody. If I focus too much on me, then I become depressed. But if I focus on adding value to another person, then you are basically a value to the world. Always you are thinking about how to help another person, how to be valuable for another person. And when you consistently do, with a question, Teresa, you should talk about questions. Yeah. Like when you question is one way to focus on something, right? And question, if you are able to find the right question, in this case, one of the questions that I suggest is, how could I add more value to my customers than anybody else in the market? How can I add more value to my customers? If you are employed right now, and if you're employed, thankfully, if you're employed right now, how can I add maximum value to my employer than any other employees in my organization, so that I could move to the next level, right? So if you are asking a question that adds value to the world, or you could ask, how can I take advantage of this employer? How can I take advantage of my employee? How can I take advantage of my customer? It's a different dynamics. At that point, you become a taker, right? And then you're not going to be happy. If you want to be happy, you want to be a giver and create questions. And Teresa, I want you to talk about creating questions and what questions do to human mind for a second.
Well, just reflect on what you just said, and you're right. It's what's going to have you stand out. And there's that beautiful quote. And I don't have, I can't remember the lady. If anybody remembers who it is, they can type it in the chat box. But about people don't remember necessarily what you said to them. It's how you have made them feel. And so this is what compounding this focus about what you can do special each day to add value to whoever it is in your life each day and have that stacked, then you leave experiences for people, not just what you said, but they remember the experience you gave to them. So check in. How am I leaving people each day after I've interacted with them over the telephone or in person, whatever that is? How am I leaving the people that I connect with? Yeah. And that comes back to you. With regards to questions, questions are such a great way to explore an idea, to really dig into something. If you, for instance, I'll use the question that I think is really important, and that is, why do you, let's just say you have a vision for 2021, a big vision or a goal. I would say to you, well, why is that so important to you? And not just, but here's the thing about asking your why. And when you're asking questions, you want to dig for gold in your questions, not just the surface questions, which I consider rocks, but you want to dig down deep and keep discovering more from that question till you're hitting the gold. And so by asking questions that go deeper. So if I said, well, I want to make more money. Okay, great. That's great. But, well, why do you want to make more money? Well, I want to make more money because I can contribute more. Great. Well, who do you want to contribute to? Why do you want to contribute? So you just keep going a layer deeper into the question, which really explores. And if you stack those two, you can really discover a lot of things in those questions. So questions are great for discovering and learning, and also for being present in a conversation, because you're adding value when you ask questions, because you're allowing someone to share something with you.
Yeah, so beautiful. So in terms of questions, like Teresa said, it's through questions that there was this guy who was sitting down below an apple tree, apple plant, and apple fell on him. And most people, when they had their the apple fall moment, wherever they were like, what the? That's what they said. When this guy said, why does the apple fall down? I know it hurts a lot, especially with my bald head or whatever. It's hurt a lot. But he asked a question, why does the apple fall down, not up? That was a question. It's a new question. So if you start asking new questions, you are going to find new answers. There are the socially acceptable way of thinking. The scientifically acceptable way of thinking was about time was a certain way. And Einstein showed up and asked a question. Is it really true that time is a constant? Maybe the light is a constant. It doesn't matter whether you are familiar with Einstein's work or not. But he was willing to ask a question. Maybe time is not the constant. Light is the constant. Let me check this. And then he tried to come up with a new question. And then we have relativity theory. Why? Because he was willing to ask a new question. If you ask new questions, sometimes you screw up, sometimes you learn something. But if you're willing to ask new questions, then there is a possibility that you might move on to the next level. By the way, I see a question here. Speaking of questions, can you please give me an example of how to add value? For sure. So add value means you have a customer. Your customer has a problem, right? You're solving a problem. Everybody, like if you want to, let me give a specific example. And this might sound like a very, very, very extreme example, but I will demonstrate that. Use that extreme example to demonstrate my point. Okay. Imagine that you're selling a box through Amazon. So you are a box seller, and all of a sudden people are paying you $14 for buying a box, a really pretty box from Amazon, and you're shipping it to people's home. All of a sudden, that's a value, right? That's a simple value. Like they get a value of getting a box. They paid $40. They get a value. What's the value? It's a box, right? They get a box. But let's say they are opening up the box, and all of a sudden there's a gold coin in the box. So all of a sudden, like the person is like, oh my gosh, there's a gold coin in this box. And then they might try to order it again. They're like, oh, this is so good. So let's order one more. And they ordered one more box. And all of a sudden, there is another gold coin in it. So now they got 2 gold coins. And then they will secretly call their friend, hey, did you know that if you order the box through Amazon, you're going to get a gold coin in it? And then they call other friends. They talk to other people, their friends, their family, the father, the mother, the sister, the friends, everybody start ordering it. Now, you might be asking, how could I put a gold coin in every box that I'm sending? You cannot. But try to figure out something that is valuable. Gold coin, in this case, it's a valuable resource. It's going to cost a lot of money, but still create value. But what can you do to add additional value to their world while you are solving the problem? Additional value to their world, so they are so much better off because of spending that $14 with you. If they're spending that money, they need to feel that, oh my gosh, I spent this money. All of a sudden, this was the best experience I had. So create massive value. That's like 2 examples of adding like regular standard value and massive value at the same time.
Yes. Also, the asking a question, just with regards to that and the value in asking a question, questions can also really anchor something. So for instance, if you were actually with a customer or client and you had a meeting or you delivered a service, a question like, what was the one thing you can take away from today's visit with us today, or what's the one thing you learned from today? A question like that, when you ask that question of your customer, client, or patient, or anyone at all in your life, allows them to basically reflect on that experience. They go back to that experience, and then they're able to actually share something from that. So it's more not so passive. They're much more engaged in what value they took away. Because sometimes what can happen is you can leave and you didn't make that anchor, that connection to whatever value you had from the experience. Not that it wasn't valuable, but you didn't actually reconnect with that. So it's a powerful way to actually just anchor something when you ask the question of what did you take away from today? What's one thing? And be specific, or one thing you learned from today?
So in other words, what Teresa is saying, in other words, is that in order for you to add value, you would ask questions that generate value. But in order for you to teach them to value what you do, you need to ask questions too. So the question that she asked, like, what did you get from today? If you're a doctor, if you see a patient, and all of a sudden, at the end of the visit, you're asking, hey, what was the best thing from today? All of a sudden, you're teaching them to value what you did. So again, you're using a question to teach them how to value what you did, right? So that's really important. And we think that, oh my gosh, if they are intelligent, our customers are intelligent, they should figure out how to value what you do. No, it's your job to teach your customers to value what you do. To teach them to value what you do, right? So fascinating question. Yeah, you use that questions like that, then you would teach people to not only value, like give them value, but you add value and you teach them how to value what you do.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect. So the power of compounding focus. Is there any other way you can see that utilized, or any more advantages to the power of compounding focus?
Sure. So most people, when something happens, when we try to do something, we are looking for omens, and we are looking for signs from universe and from our mother-in-law, whoever you are trying to look for signs. What we do is, when something happens, when something goes wrong, instead of looking for signs, signs as in SIGNS, signs, look for new strategies to focus on it. See, when you are focused on it, if you are like, if you're trying to do something, if Edison was like, if Edison was like, I tried 10 times to come up with a filament that I could use to come up with a light, and then the omen is, the sign is, my sister-in-law is saying that, this is a sign that you should really move on. Then we would be dark probably at this time. We would be doing this thing on a Facebook Live without lights probably. I don't know, but you got the idea, right? So stop looking for signs and start looking for focus. Because what you do today, no matter how silly it is, how simple it is, how no income producing it is, it doesn't matter. What matters is you continue doing that, and you continue doing that, and you might fail. And you might fail again and again and again, and you might fail again. But no matter what, if you consistently focus on what you want, and you keep on changing your strategies until you get to where you want, right? Until you get to where you want, then when you get to where you want, you're going to be massively successful. The more time it takes, our common friend Mark talks about, right, the dog giving birth to a baby versus an elephant giving birth to a baby. I don't know how long a dog, I didn't breed dogs, but I'm guessing probably it's around 4 to 5 months. I don't know. Teresa, do you know? Like a short period, right? Let's call it a short period. Yeah, do you know?
I don't.
So it's a very short period. But what for an elephant to give birth to an elephant baby, it's going to take a little bit more time. I think it's like 13, 14, or 15 months or something, right? But whatever it is, it's a longer period. Do you know what it is? I don't know either. But the point is that if you are going to deliver an elephant, you're going to need some more time, probably, right? So if you're trying to deliver a dog, then you could do it every few months. right? So if you have a big goal and if you have big ambition and big goal to achieve in life, you need to have more compounding focus. And then the key important thing, Teresa, is don't give up 3 feet from gold. The power of compounding is so important that you reach a point in your life when you are about to give up and you feel like there is no possible way you could move forward, and the next day you are successful.
Yeah, that's powerful. The other thing too is when the power of really compounding your focus is checking in on how to know where you're focusing in is check in and what are you asking yourself in that moment? Are you, and I've spoken about this before, but are you asking yourself questions that are keeping you in a space of survival, or are you asking yourself questions that are actually moving you towards what's possible? And how do you know? Well, if it's a question that gives you a reason, chances are it's survival. But if it's a question that gives you an answer, then you're moving towards something that's very productive. That's going to move you towards whatever it is you're working on, your dream, whatever it is in that space. When you look for answers, like how can I, what can I, rather than why is this happening? Why don't I have time? Whatever those questions are, they'll move you away if you keep compounding those questions, and your focus is going to go wherever your questions are you're asking of yourself as well. And that's going to impact a lot of things. That focus is going to impact how you feel about yourself and your confidence, etc., and what you're saying to yourself.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful distinction, Teresa. So in other words, if you keep on asking questions like, why does this happen to me? Why does this happen to me? And so that is beautiful. Okay, that is exactly the compounding focus on the opposite side, right? So from the childhood, like from ever since I was 5 years old, I kept asking this question: why does this happen to me? Why do I screw up all the time, right? And then when you're 10, you're like, okay, why do I screw up all the time? And when you're 15, why do I screw up all the time? When you're 13, why do you screw up all the time? Now you're a full-time screw up. Because that's what you do. That's what you focus on. That's a question you have. Right? If you have that question, then your power of compounding focus is going into probably depression or anxiety or something that is limiting you. Instead, let's find out what we really want. And based on that, let's craft questions that would get us there. And in terms of business, as we are teaching businesses all over the world, one thing is we are recognizing is ask questions that add value to your customers, to your clients, to your patients, to your whatever you call your customers, inmates, or whatever you call them, right? And if you consistently ask questions doing that, then today you make a little bit of income, tomorrow a little bit more income, a day after tomorrow a little bit of income, and then a week from now more money and more money and more money. And just like compound interest, it's going to grow to the next level. I want to add one example before we conclude. So imagine there was a lotus in a pond on day 1, and day 2 there are two lotuses in the pond, and day 3 there are 4 lotuses in the pond, and it's increasing. And day 26 we only have 3% of the pond filled with lotus. Day 25. And day 26, it's 6%. Okay. Day 27, it's 12%. Day 28, it's around 25%. Okay. Next day, it's 50%. Next day, it's 100%. So until day 1 to day 25, you are a complete screw up. Nothing happened. Nothing moved forward. Nothing happened. There was the virus. There was the economic challenge. I didn't know what to do. There was nothing moving forward. But 26 to 27, major difference. 26 to 30, within that 5 days, everything changed. And if you're not around at the time, then you're not around. You didn't benefit from your compounding focus for 26 days, right? You dug like one hole, and then you didn't find diamond. You dug another hole. You didn't find diamond. You dug another hole. You didn't find diamond. You dug like 360 holes that are 3 feet deep. But if you dig like into one hole, that 365 holes, then you are definitely going to find diamond.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the metaphor I wanted to share.
No, that's very powerful. And I think that's the power of compounding focus. Just again, wherever your focus goes, it's going to be where your energy is. It's going to be how you feel in your body and so forth. So it's pretty important you pay attention to what you're focusing on, because whatever it is, that's what you're creating in your space. And if you want to make a difference in 2021 is just around the corner, and think about what do you want. Let's use the emotions you want to focus in on. What are the top 3 emotions that would be the ones that would really have you shine and win in 2021? What would they be that you'd want to focus in on? Who would you want to be in 2021? What would you focus in on? So there could be joy, confidence, and commitment or compassion. What would they be? And make that sort of your emotional home that you create, that you live into and focus in on for 2021, so that you've got a focus that guides you.
Absolutely. And that's it. Perfectly spoken. That's all we are going to do. Focus on what you want. Focus on it often, and keep focusing on it until you get there. That's it. That's the power of compounding focus. Thank you so much for Teresa for playing. This was amazing. Always great fun. Yeah. I enjoyed
the next topic.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We'll come back with another fascinating topic next week, guys. Have an amazing day, night, wherever you're listening.
Just a suggestion too. Maybe if anyone has a specific topic they'd like us to talk on,
put that in the chat for sure. If there is any, there are people listening from like 8 different locations and several different countries, from Facebook and YouTube and many other places people listening from. So if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, anything at all, if you don't know, we will not. But if that is something that we could talk about, anything related to business, psychology, neurology, sociology, politics, geopolitical, anything that you want us to talk about, let us know. I'll be happy to discuss with Teresa, and we'll discuss that. If you don't know, we'll say, oh, I don't know. I'll introduce you to somebody who could talk about that. All right. Amazing day, guys. Great job, Teresa. It's great.
Bye.